Welcome. Dear guests, the Brazilian ambassador to Slovenia, Your Excellency, Mr. Renato Mosca de Souza, the President of the NIB Governing Board, Professor Franci Demšar, dear esteemed guests, welcome, dear friends. It is a very great honor and pleasure for me to be able to deliver this address on this very special day, honoring our colleague, Tamara Lah Turnšek, who was recognized with a special award from the Brazilian government named Rio Branco in recognition of her efforts to link the Slovenian and Brazilian science. The Order of Rio Branco is named in honor of the Brazilian diplomat José Paranhos, Baron of Rio Branco. The President of Brazil serves as the Grand Master of the Order, while the Minister of Foreign Affairs is the Order's Chancellor. Among notable past recipients of this prestigious order are names such as the Prince Carl of Sweden, Princess Madeline of Sweden, Frederick, the Crown Prince of Denmark, and among other people, the best footballer of all times, Pelé. So, exactly, the National Institute of Biology is very honored to have our own researcher, Tamara, and former director among these accomplished celebrities. Tamara, I would like to express to you sincere best wishes and congratulations on behalf of everybody at the National Institute of Biology for this prestigious award. Now, we know that science is a very international endeavor and it should not be ever done local, but it's a global, international thing. And we strongly believe in that at NIB. And we believe that for young as well as more experienced researchers, this international component is of extreme importance. And I think Tamara, as the long-term director of this institute, has long been serving this purpose of internationally established science. And she's a great proof of the importance of this international component, having spent large chunks of her career in England, USA, and in the past years also in Brazil. So the links between Slovenia and Brazil are strong, and we hope that they will become even stronger. Now, Brazil and Slovenia may not have a lot in common, seemingly from just looking at the map or at the political entities, but we believe that we do have a lot in common. Now, Brazil is huge, and it's probably the scientific main player of South America, but it's also a global hotspot of biodiversity and sort of a leading nation in scientific excellence in the Americas. Slovenia, of course, is much smaller, but it's also big. It's big in terms of linking to international science, and it's an active member of the European Union and values its scientists and the knowledge that's being created here, and also could serve as an international incubator of ideas for what we believe will be a sustainable global future. Now, our future scientific collaboration, we're talking now about bilateral collaborations between Brazil and Slovenia, as well as NIB specifically, should include, we believe, research in biodiversity, in global change biology, it's becoming a very important topic, in biomaterials, biotechnology, biomedicine, and genetically modified organisms, just to name a few of the topics. Of course, the collaboration is much of broader relevance, not just for biological sciences, but more broadly. And finally, before I give the podium, I would like to express sincere condolences, sadness, and also concern regarding the recent catastrophic fire in Rio de Janeiro, where the nation has lost important collections that were a big and important part of the national heritage. So I would like to use this opportunity for NIB to pledge our help in whatever way we can start rebuilding these collections and their value, because they're an important pillar of Brazil's national identity. So now I would like to invite to the podium His Excellency Mr. Renato Mosca de Souza to address us.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, for being here. First, I thank you very much, Professor Dr. Matjaž Kuntner, Dr. Tamara Lah, all the members of this institute, heads of department, researchers, professors, doctors, students. Thank you for the condolence. This is really an impressive catastrophe we had in Brazil, because not only we lost a collection of 20 million pieces, but as well a lot of research for a life. Do you imagine you have an office inside the museum working something, depending many areas in archaeology and suddenly you lost everything. Your research, your papers, you know better than me what would this represent for a researcher working hard in a specific field of knowledge. And this is something that will take decades to rebuild, and fortunately we found the skeleton of Luzia, the oldest person lived in America. There was a crane and it was found, and well, something important to start. Allow me read some lines, because I don't want to forget anything, things I should express and I should bring forth here to you and in this opportunity. Well, Slovenia and Brazil have built a deep relationship during the last 26 years after your independence. Our bilateral friendship is based on dialogue, cooperation, respect, and convergent principles. Our trade partnership has consistently increased in the last 10 years, and our cooperation at multilateral level has proved we have a lot in common. We share the same vision in many subjects, such as human rights, international law, environment, multilateralism, sustainable development, and peace. Slovenia is already a great nation and a great country, and Brazil envisions the great future you Slovenes are building every day. 1 year has passed since I came to this green country, and it's possible to say that the Brazilian embassy has a lot to celebrate. This period has been highly productive. When I presented my credentials to the President of the Republic, I told him about my 3 main priorities. First, reinforce our already excellent bilateral and multilateral political dialogue. Second, promote stronger trade and investments. Third, and stimulate our educational, scientific, and technological cooperation. During last year, we have dedicated efforts to strengthen political partnership, to look for new opportunities in commerce, and to create previous conditions to relaunch our scientific cooperation. As you know, our bilateral and multilateral cooperation are based on open, frank, and positive dialogue. We have constantly exchanged support in international candidacies. And our political cooperation has been successful. Brazil has given, for example, strong support to the competent work Slovenia has done as a member and in the presidency of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. Political cooperation is therefore the first pillar of this fluid relationship, and it's doing very well. This is the first priority. It's not, well, there is no values between them. It's 1, 2, 3, but similar values, similar importance. Last November, we brought to Ljubljana a governmental delegation to discuss the economic partnership and to set a roadmap for our trade exchange. We have already important figures on that, because our bilateral trade is in around $500 million. It's not little. Last June, the Slovenian government hosted the biggest and most representative Brazilian delegation of businessmen that has ever visited this country. Composed by 80 multi-sectoral members representing public and private activities, they met Slovenian counterparts, and Dr. Lah was there. And we had the opportunity to know about Slovenian potentialities and capabilities. Trade cooperation is the second pillar of this bilateral relationship we have as a priority, and we work very well on this. Of course, there is still a lot of work to do. Now we are engaged in the preparation of the first bilateral commission on science and technology, since the bilateral agreement on this issue entered into force in 2002, 16 years ago. This meeting was scheduled to 2018, this year, but unfortunately, because of crucial political circumstances in both our countries, we were obliged to postpone the arrangements for 2019. As you are aware, we are precisely this week involved in a very competitive electoral process. Recently, elections were held in Slovenia as well, keeping this country on the path of political stability, economic growth, and social justice. The same will happen in Brazil. We are confident now that as soon as we have a new government inaugurated, we can offer to the Slovenian side a date for this important meeting in Brasilia. This will give us the chance of work again in this third pillar of our relationship that was really important and productive in the past, in the near past. From our side, it's our intention to bring to the table, besides the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Science and Technology, representatives from the Brazilian National Council for Scientific and Technological Development, CNPq, that has been working a lot with NIB in the past. Representatives from FAPESP, that is an independent public foundation from São Paulo with the mission of foster research and the scientific and technological development, as well as federal and local universities, what is very important, institutes and government banks for finance this. This is important because we have to discuss which areas we should cooperate, which areas are important, we have expertise from both sides, and who would be able to finance this. We hope this scientific meeting could coincide with a visit of the Slovenian president to Brazil next year, accompanied by an important delegation of officials, businessmen, and people dedicated to education, science, and culture. we consider that it will be the best timing to reinforce our commitment to establish closer and closer links between our two countries, to show the potential of the Brazilian market to Slovenian exports, and to demonstrate the willingness to renew our educational and scientific cooperation. I always look to the future, and I have a lot of expectations. And my expectations are not rhetoric. I'm really working hard to accomplish this task. Before finishing, I take the opportunity to address one more time to Professor Dr. Tamara Lah Turnšek. Certainly not with words of compliment, because everyone in this room knows her very well. But reinforcing the words of recognition I used during the Brazilian National Day celebration, when I had the honor to bestow upon her the Order of Rio Branco, as you mentioned, Director. This order is the most important decoration Brazil confers to foreign citizens in order to recognize meritorious services and civic virtues, and to stimulate actions and deeds worth of honorable mention. In doing that, Brazil recognized Dr. Lah Turnšek because of her long-term work in promoting educational and scientific cooperation between our countries. Dr. Lah, and of course, this National Institute of Biology and its staff as well, and the direction, have been the vivid expression of the priority Slovenia confers to education, science, technology, research, and innovation. Having both countries overcome the economic crisis they faced in the last few years, I sincerely believe it's the right time for us to re-establish our educational and scientific cooperation. Slovenia is an important partner in this field, and I hope to count on you and to work together in accomplish this task. And thank you for your mention about areas such as biodiversity, materials, climate changing. All these we should concentrate and we put down in a paper to check what we could discuss during this important meeting. This would be really an opportunity to relaunch this relationship we have developed during the last decade. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, and especially His Excellency Renato de Souza, and of course also the Director Matjaž, who organized this reception for me, so thank you very much. Tell you what actually we were doing, not only me. I thank all my colleagues, especially my collaborators at NIB, to participate in this collaboration, and I would like to show them some work that we did together with Brazilian scientists. And then, of course, I would like to also mention the future of the scientific collaboration between Slovenia and Brazil. So when I was very young, in my teens, when it was not really possible to travel globally, I was dreaming about this mysterious South America, with Brazil as the heart of it. And I was wondering about these old, ancient Indian cultures, and also about the nature, biodiversity, and the beauties of the Brazilian nature, and of course the different species, different plants, different animals that I can see there. Later on, when I became a scientist, I was impressed by the Brazilian research carried out by top Brazilian scientists, and it certainly happens that at some international meeting I met them, and I also was introduced to their work, and of course in very many cases we found a really instant agreement and instant kind of way of thinking. So I think this gave me the opportunity to start my Brazilian journal, and I hope this works now. I hope this works now. And well, this was actually the journey to Foz do Iguaçu, the most famous, the beautiful jewel of Brazilian nature. And here I was with a couple of scientists from Brazil and from Europe, international meeting. And so it is that we started this journey together with my current collaborator, Kenny Puri, and others. So this is how I first met Brazilian nature and environment. So after this trip, I started actually my collaboration in Rio de Janeiro, and soon you will see where that is. So it was the first destination, the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, which is the most famous university in the state of Rio, and actually this, in my opinion, is the most beautiful city in the world. It's really wonderful, with all these views, monuments, and of course people that really are beautiful and actually very warm, and we find really many things in common. And here I met Vivaldo Moraneto, who was the chief at the time of the cell biology department at the medical faculty of the university, directing a large group of scientists doing the same research as I do, glioblastoma, and also the cell biology. So we immediately find a general agreement that actually we would not only collaborate between the two groups, but we would also like to extend this collaboration to the scientists in Brazil and to the scientists in Slovenia. So the idea came that we would organize a workshop. The workshop on life sciences termed Health and Environment, and this was actually organized by my colleague Bojan Sedmak, where we have in fact invited not only the scientists from our institute, but also from different Slovenian institutions, Biotechnical Faculty, Institute Josef Stefan, University of Medical School of University of Ljubljana, and others. And the people from Brazil were from different universities from Brazil. So it was really meant to screen whatever we are doing and to start the educational program. And this was held at Piran at our marine biology station, and really from that there came this memorandum on collaboration, which then we carried out step by step in next years. It was a very lucky incident that at that time the ambassador from Brazil to Ljubljana was nominated, and that was Mrs. Deborah Weinbaum, with her husband, Professor Bogdan Šare, who actually is Slovene. And while he immigrated to Brazil when he was 13 years old, educated there, but all the time he was still working on collaboration. He was really trying to really enforce economic collaboration between the two countries. And he was, at the time when they were staying in Ljubljana, also the Director General of International Center for Promotion and Enterprise. They actually sponsored this workshop that I mentioned before, and they visited Institute quite often. And one of the occasions was where we have hosted the visitors from Embrapa, Dr. Miguel Borges, who was collaborating with Professor Andrei Čokl, and I will ask him later on to tell more about this collaboration. And so this was kind of the first really promising, really very long-lasting collaboration. It still lasts until now. The next topic that we found in common with Rio de Janeiro scientists were harmful algae. Here we have collaborated with Professor Sandra Azevedo, working on cyanobacterial blooms that really intoxicated many water bodies in Brazil. And as you know, these bacteria secrete toxins which are not only toxic for the environment, but also for animals and humans. We do have the same problem. This is, for example, Lake Bled, when this cyanobacteria bloomed, and it's very, not only unpleasant, but it's very dangerous for the health of the environment and humans. So we have, at that time, still collaborating now, but at that time and further on, constructing the vessels that contain the biosensors. And this biosensor enabled the early online detection of cyanobacteria from the rest of the phytoplankton, so the separated specific cyanobacteria that were toxic, so to prevent their proliferation. This collaboration was carried out by Professor Van, and now they also patented this together with the company who constructed this vessel. And now the patent is under European patent application. We hope to get it soon. But it's so important that actually it was recently, this year, recognized as the very important technological innovation, and we got the first prize on an Energy Globe Award for innovation technology for cyanobacteria bloom control. It was quite a hard competition with 180 participants and also 2,000 projects that were competing, so we are very proud of that. And what I emphasize here is that this is a technological innovation that is based on the scientific findings that cyanobacteria bloom collapse based on cyanophages-induced lysis, and this is actually monitored by biosensors. The group will continue further in this direction, and next they would like to design these biosensors not for the vessels, but also for the drones that would supervise the biological supervise the water supplies by this biological monitor, so cover larger area of intoxication actually of the pollution. Next. Collaboration is carried out by Professor Kuntner, and he was collaborating with INPA, and as you know, the National Institute for Research in the Amazon, called INPA, is a huge institution covering all the biodiversity and ecological research of Amazon River Basin. The institute is comprising like 3,000 to 4,000 researchers or something like that, and it's really looking for the influence of climate changes on the biodiversity of this river. During this collaboration, Professor Adalberto Val came with his team to our institute, and they performed actually the experiments that were to determine the influence of disturbances of the ecosystem, changes of temperature and oxygen and so on the biological, physiological processes that occurs in living fishes in tropical zones. So these fishes, as you have seen here, are really huge and dangerous. During this visit, Professor Adalberto Val and our institute, he of course is the director of this institute, signed this mutual agreement on collaboration, and this was signed at the Embassy of Brazil, at that time directed by Gilberto Fonesca Guimarães de Moura, who really got hold of this reception, and as you can see here, also our current director was present. So it was really more than one institute. It was really the community that we tried to celebrate, and this was published in newspapers and so on. So we cared about the promotion as well. At the Marine Biology Station, the collaboration started a long time ago with Brazilian scientists, a long time ago, 2004. Professor Alenka Maley And Professor Maron has established the links, collaboration, as both institutions, Marine Biology Station, our institute actually, and that institute were part of the International Oceanographic Institute. It's a consortium of the institutions, and they collaborate mutually in very many areas of the marine biology and marine ecology. Later on, Professor Mare collaborated also with Andre Carrera, and since 2010 they carried out the project on biophysical models and geography of the key species in jellyfish, and which you maybe have heard is very popular research also at the moment, and we got some European grants on this subject. Now I switch actually from Rio to São Paulo. São Paulo is also an impressive city. It's the largest in the world, I think. It's about 20 million inhabitants, and it's very different kind of lifestyle there. But I was, in a way, impressed by all these beauties, which are different from Rio's, but also the universities. I collaborated there with two scientists from two different universities. One is State University, São Paulo, so-called USP, which is prestigious. It's #1 in South America. It ranked like 40 in the Shanghai letter, so it's really good university. It's great university, and I was very pleased to be there and collaborate with them. And then also with Federal University of São Paulo. Here I collaborated with Maria Luisa Oliva, both on cancer and stem cells. My research actually is on brain tumors, and I'm not going to talk more about that, but what we collaborated on were glioblastomas, which are most aggressive tumors that you can imagine in human tumors. And here we have focused our attention also on glioblastoma stem cells. And then we were looking together on the reasons of the resistance of this tumor due to these types of cells present in the brain. And so we ended up with different therapeutic ideas, therapeutic windows for stem cell, antidenase, stem cell niche disruption, mesenchymal stem cell, and so on. And these are the area of research that now we investigate together, and actually also have started to investigate with Henning Ulrich. And we got the grant from CMPQ. CMPQ is a big institution, actually is a national agency for research and technology, kind of similar to our Slovenian research agency, but also for technologies covering large areas of different sciences, different aspects. And here I got this fellowship for visiting professorship for 3 years, spending there at least 3 months per year. And also on the top of this, I got the PhD student, Mona Oliveira. And so it's a package that you get, and also you have to teach. And so it was really a nice experience to teach these students who are, again, prestigious in Brazil and in South America. So this is Mona. And now Mona was working on the fusion of cancer stem cells and mesenchymal stem cells, so very new and exciting topic. And this was published recently in scientific reports. But not only that, Mona, after 2 years, decided to move to Slovenia. And so she was here, you probably know her, and she is very ambitious. So she enrolled also in the International Postgraduate School of Josef Stefan. Now she's trying to get the double degree there, and I hope she will. But also, as you see Mona here, she decided to stay in Slovenia for a longer time, get married, and gave birth to son Dario. But not only that, now, after close to finishing the degree, she applied for the fellowship to start the company, the spin-off company, and she got the very prestigious Canadian Trust fellowship. And she's at the moment back and forth from São Paulo to Ljubljana and working on this new company. I hope she will succeed. So it's really a success story, I think, resulting from this collaboration. Of course, I was not only working in the lab when I was in Brazil. I was going around. I was really going to doing some recreation in all respects. This is the famous Rio Park in São Paulo. Beautiful and recreation, as you can see here, and of course talking to young people, especially Matjaž Kuntner at that time was also my PhD student, a joint student between the two institutions, working on her PhD, so we spent a lot of time together. And of course, what you do there, you drink caipirinha, and this is the most famous bar, Veloso bar, that makes the best caipirinha in the world, as advertised. So, but that was not all. I did also contact many people, and I want that we would expand this collaboration also to other Slovene universities and Brazilian universities. And so I got in contact with the embassy, Slovenian embassy, and Slovenian consulate in São Paulo. And here you can see at the time the consul was, the ambassador was Milena Schmidt in the main capital, Brasilia, in Brazil. And then Cristina Rade was a consulate in São Paulo. And they were, of course, collaborating or really working together with a honorary consul. This is Otávio Oliva and his wife. And this is an occasion where we have signed the agreement between USP and our institute at the house of the honorary consul. And so you can see here also the dean, Professor Catalani, the dean of the USP, and this was an event taking place in São Paulo in 2015. Going even broader than that, I wanted to really establish collaboration in terms of Europe, that would be supported by European funds, because European Commission and Brazil signed the contract that would also include Slovenia, of course, and there were funds that were perhaps to be used for our collaboration. So I was then a member of the EU delegation representing Slovenia on this Euro-Brazil Technology and Innovation Forum, B2B meeting, so-called, in 2014. And I gave the presentation like this here. This was in Belém, in the north of Brazil. And I was trying to also present Slovenia in the best of its form, in the strongest areas that I think are really in Slovenia to collaborate. So listed here all the agriculture, GMOs, water pollution, safety food, biodiversity, oceanography, health, cancer research, stem cell technology, and so on. It's quite a large area of possible collaboration. So I presented that, and of course also other organizations, other institutes in Slovenia, and also indicated the institutions in Brazil that would be possible, are already or to be partners of our institutions. So at that time, we also had this strategy, goals of Slovenia and smart specialization, as you know. And so I also mentioned that Slovenia is a very attractive region for ecological innovation, and that is directed to develop high-tech small, medium enterprises, that what actually we are doing now with Mona, for example, and define the niches, and of course we have the competences here in the global market and so on. I also presented the activities actually that were already at that time, the links between our Ministry of Science, the research agency, and the agencies in CNPq. It's not only CNPq, there's also São Paulo Agency for Research and so on, and I hope this all these already established links that, as His Excellency mentioned, kind of stopped because of the economical crisis in both countries, will be re-established now. To do that, we have met 2016 again, this time in Rio, and this was the delegation of the Ministry of Science in Rio de Janeiro, entitled When Two Continents Meet, and I also had a talk on that, and there were plans to meet and to start collaborating. Unfortunately, this has not been realized. So there's a lot of work that's it's waiting to be done in this respect. And as you can see here, this was the year of Olympic Games, and this is Copacabana Beach, where people did sand sculptures. And I hope that this castle of sand that was actually blown away.
Copacabana in a cloudy day.
In a cloudy day, unfortunately, but that was fact at that time. So, and as I said in conclusion, really these castles, sand castles, were wiped away by political, economical crisis. But I hope we will re-establish that, and we will build up joint research, teaching, of course, mutual exchange of researchers and students. And let me now really thank His Excellency Renato Mosco de Souza for these efforts and for future efforts, and not only scientific but economic cooperation, as we have heard from him. And finally, also the thanks go to the diplomacy of the State of Brazil, because they recognize the importance of scientific diplomacy, and by this acknowledge the importance of science in general in social development and the integration of countries. So this is very important. And right at the end, young researchers that are sitting there in the last row, I think, I would like to encourage them not only to do their work, scientific work in the labs, go out, communicate, and network internationally, and create this scientific environment that would benefit not only your country, but would benefit internationally. I think this is a take-home message for them. And Dan, I really thank you for your attention.
Our collaboration between the National Institute of Biology and Embrapa Institute in Brazil started 15 years ago. So today, or this year, is the 15th anniversary of our cooperation. Groups are very much skilled in communication, and that was topics of our collaboration that is still running and going on. The group from the Department of Biological Resources and Biotechnology at Embrapa Institute in Brasilia and the National Institute of Biology, Department of Entomology. The topics is insect communication as basis for biorational control of insect pests. Luckily, we were both very much interested in stingbugs that represent the major pest species in Brazil, probably mainly in soyfield fields, and there they make $1 million damage. So the group in Brazil at Embrapa Station is focused on chemical communication. It means by pheromones, and they develop pheromone traps. And all during that time, they were lacking some information what happens on the plant. Stingbugs, they meet by pheromones on the plant, but pheromones are not effective there. And all the time we had in our mind an open question: how do they find each other in the field? And we knew a little bit more what happens on the plant. So with the first visit in 2003, we discussed the possibility to join our work, and really we found and described synergy between chemical and between vibrational signals in mating behavior of stingbugs. In these 15 years, we published 28 papers. Last year, we published a book in US together with scientists from United States Department of Agronomy, and where we gathered up-to-date knowledge with some ideas how to go on. During our cooperation, we also extended our investigations to spiders. At Embrapa, at State University in Curitiba of Paraná, in Curitiba, we investigated communication of very dangerous spiders. And at Embrapa station in Londrina, we investigated burrow bugs that live under the earth and they feed on the roots and make a lot of damage. So we go on, our cooperation goes on, and the main topics of our research now are non-specific vibratory signals, which are transmitted not only through the plant, but wide in the field as airborne sound. And at the chemical side, they are investigating a very interesting question about steam bugs' footprints, contact chemicals. When they walk around, they leave traits, they leave footprints, and this may help to orient in the field. So, that's all. We are not collaborators anymore, we are friends. After 15 years, there is no more, nothing but friends, and I love Brazil. Thank you.
Now, before we go on, there's another. Join us all to discuss ideas of future deepening of Brazil.